Right, hi lads and lasses, and welcome to the latest edition of A Chuck and a Chat. Right, so in this edition of A Chuck and a Chat, we're going to look at a few little aspects of different things. Obviously not made a coaching video for quite a while now, but this is the first one for some time. And what I want to do is I want to just have a little bit of a skip over the basics, and then what we'll do is we'll go into a little bit of a masterclass of number one is going to be the serving hand, which is something I've said on many an occasion is badly neglected. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go on into section 2, and section 2 this month is going to be about double finishing. Something that I've spoke about one or two times before. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the logic of it, how it's come into the modern game, etc. And then what we'll do is we'll have a little bit of a play along practice. Right, so let's get over into section 1 of this month's A Chuck and a Chat. And before we do that, let's just have a little bit of a word about Dynamite Dave and the coaching that you can get if you want some coaching from Dynamite Dave. So you first dart in, and your second dart at your first dart's flying, and then your third dart at your first dart's flying, and there you go, straight out the bat, first thing in the morning, 180. Certainly is 180. Oh, 180. So here we are in our first little section, and what we're going to do here is we're going to have a quick look and a quick skirt across the basics, because we've picked up loads of subscribers since I last made a video, so it's only right we do a nice little fresh recap of the basics. So dead simple, we're just going to fly through this. It's only going to be probably 5 minutes maximum, and we'll just have a quick go through the basics, and then we'll get on having a look at that serving hand, shall we? Right, so dead simple. If you want to have a go at the Dynamite Dave way, which I thoroughly recommend, and so do thousands of other players. There's loads and loads of people right across the world doing this now, and the reason they're doing it is because it makes sense and it's logical. That's where the Dynamite Dave way came from. If you're brand new here, go back in the archives, in the YouTube channel, have a look at some of the old videos, and it'll get you right into the path of becoming a dead good dart player. And it's really quite simple. All it is throughout the ages, somebody's just give you a set of darts and you've just flung them at the board, and more than likely that's exactly what you're doing now. You're just flinging them at the board in an hope that you'll become good at it. If you want to become good at it, what you do is you have to do it the right way. Right, so what we'll do is get into the first little bit of it now, and what we do is we always go from the ground upwards. Doesn't matter whether it's a golf stand, whether it's a boxer, it's what plants you to the floor, which is probably one of the most vital parts of what you're actually doing. The great thing with the Dynamite Dave way is, if you look, what I'll do is I'll project it as usual up in the corner here. You'll be able to see my feet now. What I've done is I've put myself a pair of these sweatpant things on so as it clings around my ankles, so you get a really good view of exactly what I'm doing. The Dynamite Dave stance is none of this, like this, tottering about on one leg, leaning forward. Same the other way, none of this malarkey, because it just makes you unstable. Right, so The basics of the Dynamite Dave stance is, instead of doing all that messing about with your feet, is leave your feet totally planted to the floor, just like that. As you can see up in the corner there, my 2 feet are absolutely flat on the floor. There's no leaning towards the board, it gains you no advantage whatsoever. If you lean towards the board, the more you lean, the more unstable you become. So that extra centimetre or 2 centimetres that you get closer to the board, you've lost that in a lack of stability. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set myself up left-handed, because I've set the camera so as you can actually see it properly from this actual angle. And it's as simple as this. So all we've done is we've got that as feet are nice and level. All we've done is turned it round. So we've gone, to start off with, 90 degrees to the board. And what we do is we turn the toe in like that. So the actual flat part of your foot is across the hockey. If you can see just here, there's a black arrow on the hockey there, and that is right where my little toe is. And that puts me right in the middle of the board. So from there, what you do is you make sure that you've got your 2 feet underneath your armpits. Not right out here and not stood like this, because obviously this makes you more unstable. This stops you from planting your foot properly. So if you put your feet too wide apart, you're going to have trouble getting the actual weight onto your front foot. Now, not leaning, all you do is you rock your weight onto your front leg, and all that does is plant your front leg to the actual floor itself and makes you just absolutely rock solid. So it's not transferring your weight and leaning forward. All you're doing is, from a perfectly neutral position, is you're just rocking forward onto your front leg just to plant that front foot. The other foot remains absolutely rock solid on the floor, and that, in essence, is the Dynamite Dave stance. It's logical, it's solid, it's reliable, it's dead easy no matter where you're going, which pub it is. It's dead easy to get right. You're not doing all that tottering about, you're not flailing about when you're trying to throw your darts. It just puts you absolutely rock solid onto the floor. So moving up from that, we've got what I like to call thorax neutral, or the upper body position. And the thorax neutral is dead simple again. You just stood 90 degrees to the board, and all you do is you fetch your arm up here, so it's miles away from where you're actually going to set up towards the board. So you fetch your arm up like this, as if you're going to throw towards the board, and all you do is fetch your arm out until you feel it like a stop. You can feel the muscle start to go tight, and if you push it past that, it's uncomfortable. So what you do is you fetch it out till it hits the stop there, and then what you do is you rotate the shoulders outwards degrees to it, so you're facing away from it. Then what you do is you fetch your arm up so as it's nice and comfortable, fetch it across till you feel the stop. That stop there means that when you go backwards and forwards with your arm, it's got a guidance to it, rather than it being here and it just wobbling all over the place. If you go back to here, it naturally stops. So it's like having your hand running backwards and forwards on a wall or a surface, so it keeps it in a nice straight line. So as I say, you fetch it back to the stop, and then what you do is you allow this shoulder, so if you're right-handed it will be your left shoulder, if you're left-handed it will be your right shoulder. Just allow that to come forward now, and as that happens, if you're holding your arm vertical like this, your arm will naturally come to the side of your head. Instead of being in front of your nose here and having a chopping motion when you're chucking the darts, and then think about it logically, if you release it a split second early, millisecond early, it's over into the 1. You release it a millisecond late and it's down into the 5. So the best way, absolutely vertical forearm, very important. So we fetch it across, so we've got a nice vertical forearm, and as it comes up here it will be slightly in front of your face. Just allow your shoulders to rotate out so that arm comes just to the side of your face. The reason for that is, if you're in front, you're flinging the dart at the board. If you fetch it to the side of your face, you've got a lovely long action. What that means is you slow your arm speed down, but you've got more energy in the dart, so you can literally just plop it into the board without putting hardly any effort into it whatsoever. And it will just, and eventually, because obviously this is like anything, It takes dedication, and you've got to practice at it. If you're coming from an individualistic throw, you've got to put the effort in. As Roy Castle says, dedication's what you need. 10 or 15 visits, 25 or 50 visits will not get you into the Dynamite Dave way. You've got to give it a good 2 or 3 days. Some people, don't get me wrong, some people click with it straight away and they're right in. 10, 15 minutes in, they're throwing in this way and they think to themselves, why haven't I thrown this way all my life? And I hear that all the time. So nice, very, very gentle, very, very slow arm speed, and all you're doing is just putting the darts in the board where you want them to go. Right, so here we are in the serving hand section. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, using the camera up in the corner here, the actual transfer between the serving hand and the throwing hand. Really, really important. We've all seen players like Gerwin Price, who drops the darts a lot, a hell of a lot, because of a weak serving hand. And then we've got other players like Gary Anderson is one of them, very rarely ever drops a dart. One or two other players that very rarely ever drop a dart. Fucking shite. And it just emphasises how important the serving hand is. Because the last thing you want to be doing is dropping your darts on the floor as you're actually throwing, because it loses your concentration. If you pull a dart out, to pull a dart out of your hand and you drop it on the floor, if you look down at the floor, then you've got to reset yourself, and it takes a few seconds to do that, or you've got to ignore it and pick it up at the end. Far better if you just don't do it. Right, so first of all we've got the serving hand. If we look at the camera up here, we've got the serving hand, and what we do is the serving hand comes just tucked underneath the belly there, with the hand out and the thumb on top of the darts. Then as your throwing hand comes in, so I'm going to turn my body slightly so you get a better view, as the throwing hand comes in, 2 fingers drop away and you pull the dart out of your hand in the perfect place every time. Put that to the back, tap them on there to get them nice and level. So there's another great tip for you: tap them on there, touch them with the back of your hand, make sure they're nice and level in your hand, and then you take the first one out to throw. So what I do is I set myself up in the throwing position, and then I take the first dart out, and then the second dart comes up, and it's as simple as that. Right, so we'll give a run through that again. Set yourself up, all darts in hand, tap, square them off. As the hand comes in to take the dart, and it's really, really easy. You can practice this anywhere. You don't have to practice it by actually throwing darts. You can put the 3 darts in your hand and you can just be stood. You can even stand watching the telly or while you're doing something else. When you've got a little bit, 5 minutes of free time, 5 minutes of getting used to getting these fingers to drop away and the hand to come in like a machine, just leave it there, just tucked underneath your belly, and then as your hand comes in, the fingers drop away, the dart comes out into the hand perfectly, and it's thrown. Simple as that. Right, third and final time, and what we'll do is we'll slow this right down for you, is the darts go into the hand, and if you want to practice it, it's dead simple. All you do is swing the fingers away as your arm comes down, take it out, fetch it up, fetch it back down, put it into the back of the hand, and let the darts roll together, tap them like that, drop the fingers away, come in, take the dart out again, and away you go. Simple as that. Right, so that is the serving hand. Right, so before we go into the next section, if you want to throw darts the Dynamite Dave way and become really good in a really short period of time, then it's dj.llewellyn dj.llewellyn123@outlook.com. That's dj.llewellyn123@outlook.com, and I'll send you all the information. As well as using the email address, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and now on TikTok. Or you can quite simply, as it says on the back of my shirts, just Google it. Google Dynamite Dave and I come up as about the first 5 or 10 results. Right, so it's dead easy to get in touch with me, so if you fancy being able to throw darts like Dynamite Dave to that sort of standard in a reasonable amount of time, then get in touch.